Welcome everyone to First Parish in Milton. My name is Leslie MacPherson, and I am actually chair of the membership committee, but I am here with these three other fabulous people leading you in worship today in our service, which is fresh from General Assembly, and we will report back. If you're here for the first time, a very warm welcome. If you are interested in knowing more about our church, you can talk to me or any of us after the service. And if you're having a hard time, please raise your hand and let us know. And if you're on Zoom, you can use the chat box and we can get the volume increased. We say that worship can take place both inside and out of the meeting house. Church projects and activities are listed in the link, which is electronic on Thursdays. And our lay-led services are a little bit different from the minister-led services during the rest of the year. They're an hour earlier, sometimes shorter, and sometimes quite different from our typical services in that we share something about ourselves and you can get to know us a little bit better and you can know something about our personal lives. I am now going to give a reading and light our chalice. We kindle a flame of power, illuminating what's holy in each of our faces. We recognize in the flame a passionate commitment to our shared faith. We are held and carried from day to day, week to week in the shining of the light. The flame is mine as well as yours. We are brought together on this day, called to growth, to expansion within its glow. Listen to what your heart knows while beholding this holy fire. And now can you please all join me in the call to worship, which you will find in the fan in your pew. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and compassion. Together we build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together. Sorry about that. And now, an introduction to General Assembly, and I'm going to introduce Ellen Barr.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I am one of the 4 delegates, and we were at General Assembly last month together, each of us charting our own path through the programs. And this morning, we hope to give you an idea of all that we experienced. But first of all, we were just 4 of 2,593 delegates. And with non-delegate participation, we totaled more than 3,000 UUs. We came from 715 congregations, and all 50 states were represented, plus DC, Canada, Mexico, and the Philippines. What a feeling to be part of such a giant UU community.
And what a broad community it was, not just geographically. I'm Jim May, another one of our delegates, and I was struck by the level of engagement and leadership provided by people of color and members of the LGBT community. In every session, the potential for building diverse and welcoming beloved UUA communities was palpable. But what surprised me most was the number of young people present and fully engaged. One of the most moving activities of the week for me was the bridging ceremony, where dozens of UU young people celebrated their transition from youth to young adulthood. With such committed young people on board, there is a chance that UUs can make a difference in the world.
I never thought when I went to Logan Airport on June 21st, there would be so many UUs on the plane ride from Boston to Pittsburgh. Some of them even joined me on the local bus to downtown Pittsburgh for $2.75 versus taking an Uber for over $45. I just gathered some people and I said, I'm taking the local bus. Who wants to come with me? And some people just joined in and it became my first friends. As we got close to the convention center, flags welcoming UUs to Pittsburgh were hanging on every street. And then once in the sprawling building with the UU convention, there were people immediately there to advise like where to register, where to use the restroom, where to get a mobility advice. And then you got your necklace like Leslie's got here. So for the rest of GA, wherever you were in the streets or at the hotels or in the convention center, you knew who you were a part of. And that just felt like your old home week. But there were guides stationed everywhere to help direct people to registration, orientation, the restrooms, food. There were people of all ages, colors, mobilities. The magnificent view out the window was the river where the local fire squad was practicing water rescues. That was quite entertaining. Everyone seemed to be smiling and were so friendly. I felt such a sense of community with these folks I had never met before. It almost felt like summer camp or a school or family reunion.
When you go to GA, you go from one event to another, morning worship service, a workshop, the general session where the voting on denominational issues takes place, the exhibit hall where vendors with everything from hand-carved chalices and speak your truth buttons to information on how to attend a divinity school are located. Something that always delights me is everywhere I go, I love the variety of t-shirts that everyone wears. We literally wear our values on our sleeves, fronts, and backs. It is fantastic to see this colorful array of clever text and public statements. And now you can rise as you are willing and able, and we will sing our first song, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, number 361 in the gray hymnal. In lieu of a sermon, the four of us are presenting what we call what moved us at General Assembly. And it needs to be said that there is way more. I mean, there's no way we can encapsulate our experience over the 5 days into this little nugget. So, but we hope you'll get a feeling for what the best we could do. Anyway, okay. Yeah.
Good morning. I forgot to introduce myself as Deb Alsebai. This was my first GA as a delegate. Previously, with Lise Hendricks, I attended the opening ceremony with a flag parade in Providence, Rhode Island, and listened to Sister Simone Campbell talk about her adventures. And just seeing the many UUs there was really interesting. And I always thought to myself, someday I want to be part of that even more so. And then in 2017, I went to GA in New Orleans to see Brian Stevenson, who is the author of Just Mercy. And that book changed my life. And when I found out that he was going to be in New Orleans, I was going. But we didn't really do delegates. I didn't even know what a delegate was, but I really just went to see him, and then just happened upon some other sessions where they had Robin DiAngelo, who talked about white privilege. And we got to see, and I also got to see for the first time, Reggie Harris and Greg Greenway, which is Leslie's brother-in-law, cousin-in-law, who are part of a group called Deeper Than the Skin, which we're hoping to have come sing here sometime. And then the GA, this GA was different because I went as a delegate, which is where you have voting. You get to vote on different GA issues, the president, and just different ballot items. And we had to vote on sensitive UUA business, and it entailed a lot of reading and listening before GA and then during GA. I was proud to be part of a faith that allowed every voice to be heard online or in the convention hall, often with opposing views. It was a gift to be able to discern their arguments and vote for what I felt was the greater good of our faith. This convention was also full of many serendipitous moments I will tell you about. On the bus trip from the airport, I met Mary and Lori, who are both from Vermont. We became instant friends. They're one of the ones that took the cheap bus with me. We became instant friends, and they guided me to the front rows of the GA because we were kind of in the back the first session with Reverend Lisa, and you really couldn't, I mean, I just felt like you were kind of far away. But anyway, there's lots of front row seats. People just don't know about them. So the next time they actually saved us like 5 seats up in the front. And it was powerful to be so close and see the amazing down-to-earth people who led the service and meetings, the people that are part of the UUA. And local UU friends watching on Zoom saw us on their screens. So like we were stars because we were on TV. And Mary and Lori also told me about their hotel and how it provided a free breakfast and lunch. Our hotel didn't do that. So after Lisa left for Star Island, I looked for a roommate to share expenses with. With Leslie's help on the GA app, I connected with Linda Fee from Minnesota, who was staying at a hotel that included breakfast and dinner and was even closer to the convention center. We became instant friends, shared a lot of our UU stories, and both saved some money and ate for free the rest of the GA. In the sessions I attended, I learned about Zoom, beloved conversations that helped UUs learn and talk about race across the country. These conversations were open for everybody, and they're still going on. So we'll talk about that more as I talk about racial justice and other events. I also learned about the building the world we dream about and reimagining church. They talked about having like a playground in the church during a service for the kids to play and having books and blocks and letting them hear what was happening in an adult church, but allowing them to be in the church service. And I just thought that was kind of a cool idea. I look forward to sharing these teachings with First Parish throughout this year and future years. After one of our evening services, the UU recognized Alandria Williams, a UUA co-moderator who passed away. Her mom, Eleonora, got up and spoke on her behalf. After the service, I approached her and told her how sorry I was that she lost both her daughter, and then she told me she had just lost her husband. We ended up walking back to the hotels together. It was kind of a rainy night, and sharing different stories. Jim was kind enough to take her all the way to her hotel because I was staying closer now. And she was staying in the old hotel that I was at. I ran into her several more times throughout the convention and felt a kinship with her. She had an air about her that put everyone at ease. Here she had lost so much, but kept passing along her love. Years ago, I was introduced to the UU Church by an Ohio State University friend, Bill Lyons. I had not seen him since a few years after graduation in 1986. When I saw some folks from Cincinnati name tags, I asked them if they knew Bill. They kind of talked among themselves. They're like, it sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. And all of a sudden, one of their friends was coming down the escalator and they asked him, do you know Bill Lyons? And they said, yeah, he's here. So they put me in touch with him on the GA app. And from there, we kept running into each other. Even the first night, Lisa took us all out for Thai food at the Thai restaurant. He was there with his church. It was just like we kept on running into each other. And here I hadn't seen this guy since 1986. And he's the one, when I was on my church quest, I had gone to every single church in Reading, Massachusetts, but not the UU church because it was closed in the summer. And that's when I was able to go to the next church. And so he told me that I should check it out. And here I am. And because of that, it was so good to catch up with him, but I owe him being in community with all of you. At one of the evening services, I was particularly distracted with some theater work issues. I was in the front center row facing the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who is now our new UUA president. As much as I tried to take care of business, I could not. Her words left me spellbound, and I realized that actually was important. I actually could figure out what was important. I immediately put my phone down and listened. She had a lot to say that moved me, but what I remembered her most saying was that if we wanted her to be successful, she needed our help. Would we help her? If we wanted A, B, C done, would we help her? Would we be there? They were expecting her to do it all, or would we be with her? She had everyone's attention. She is the 10th UU president. She's the first openly queer person and first woman of color leading our UUA. Extremely impressive. I can't tell you enough of how distracted I was and how I was spellbound. It was such a religious experience for me to have that realization sitting there being in front of her. Her name is Sophia Betancourt. Google her, read some of her writings. You will know her. You will know her you will know our denomination is in amazing hands if you start reading something about her. Her parting words to us were, be a UU 7 days a week, not just on Sundays. Be curious, open-minded, and not afraid to do some work. Call on ancestors, comrades, elders, looking at our past to find out what our future leads. Be a present learner and a teacher. And she inspired us to be the people we are called to be and tend to the care of our own spirits. Some of the other highlights of GA was seeing Matt Myers play up on stage. You know, we're so lucky to have him here, but he was there. I ran into Parisa. I saw Sarah Elizabeth and got to spend a lot of time with her, and then meeting my old college friend, Bill Lyons. I got to stand up with the teens at the end. They were protesting the UUA's investment in just the UU investments that are a little bit more questionable, how we're earning money. And I really felt that they are, they're young and they've got a long life ahead of them, and they're really trying to make a difference. And the UUA decided to not follow their recommendations. And I just felt like they got up and protested, and I was in the front row. So I just joined them. I felt very empowered to walk the talk as they were doing, because they're, they've got such longer lives, and the fact that they got up there and did that. There was just all kinds of, things that we learned that we're looking forward to sharing with all of you. If you have more questions about GA, please, catch me anytime, or we'll go out for tea. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear Debbie's experiences. What moved me at GA was our responsibilities as delegates, the things we had to vote on, and we had to study and learn about them and learn about the process. Even before we arrived, we were presented with some voting on actions of immediate witness. I don't know if you know about these, but actions of immediate witness, or AIWs, are presented by different congregations. If a congregation feels passionate about a particular subject, they might propose an action of immediate witness to be voted on at GA and to be approved. So in the first step, we had to look at the 6 proposals and vote on 3. Well, I'm not going to go into detail of what they all were, but here are the 3 that won. There was an AIW that asks us to support the Dreamers and call on Congress to pass legislation giving them a pathway to permanent residence. There was an AIW that calls for our support of action against all the attacks against abortion, gender-affirming healthcare, and advocacy for health equity. And finally, there was an AIW that asked for our help in taking action against Cop City. This is the nation's largest militarized police training center being planned for construction in Atlanta. AIWs are submitted with the hope that other congregations will engage. And if you want more information, the text of these AIDs are at the UUA website. Next, we had a very important business resolution to consider. This was for the UUA to completely divest from fossil fuel companies and pay reparations to groups that have been affected by their previous investments. This was a very potent business resolution, and all kinds of amendments were offered. One of the amendments was take out the reparations. And anyway, we watched as UUA leadership came out against this, and the youth rose up in favor of it. So it was a very controversial business resolution. And when the final vote was taken, it failed. And nobody felt this issue is going away. The UUA pledges they are in the process of divesting and paying reparations. We'll be seeing it again in the future. There is also the attention to Article 2. Remember when we adopted the 8th principle last year? Well, now that 8th principle has been rolled into a new version of Article 2, our our purposes and guidelines, now called our values and government and and inspirations. So there's a new draft of this Article 2. We'll be hearing more about it this year because it touches all of our 7 principles. And we have to look at it as a congregation and decide how delegates should vote on this, because it's going to come up for a vote for adoption in 2024. And finally, we elected our new president, as Deb referred to, a highly competent person serving as a parish minister, a seminary professor, a scholar, an environmental ethicist, even one of the 3 interim presidents that were appointed in 2017. And she's the first generation daughter of immigrants from Chile and Panama. So as Deb said, she's our first woman of color, first queer president in UUA history. And what a pride for our denomination. General Assembly in Pittsburgh was a wonderful experience, and I love the issues that were being debated. And we were very proud to serve as delegates from our church.
You can see it was quite an adventure. Going to General Assembly is like homecoming for me. Some of you know that I work at Harvard Divinity School, so I see pretty much every alum who's become a minister over the last 20 years. So it's kind of a love fest. I can hardly walk anywhere without seeing people I know. I am always eager to get the work of the denomination done. And as you just heard, this year's was particularly challenging to do that work. I do that, but the thing that my heart goes for when I go to General Assembly are the connections. And I make these connections in different ways. Primarily, I was thinking about this, the workshops and the worships are the 2 things that really feed me when I'm there. In addition to just sort of walking around the exhibit halls, which there's vendors and just all these kind of cool stuff you wouldn't have thought of. In fact, if you're interested afterwards, we have a little display of some of the swag that we brought back. You can come up and see the funny stickers I got from the UU Hysterical Society. And you can look at my, they say she who dies with the most ribbons wins. Although I know it's wasteful, but it is kind of fun. And when you go through the exhibit hall and you pick up ribbons, you engage, which is always really a lot of fun for me. Every year I go looking for new ideas, new ways that I can engage and then bring back here to First Parish. One of the best examples I can give is what I got from General Assembly in 2018. I went to a workshop offered by the Dallas UU Church, Dallas, Texas Church. They created their series of programming meant to engage UUs in congregations all over the world. That's their program, Faith Forward, from which I brought our UU elevator speech, which I have done and will continue to do. And that's just one nugget of this program. It's a really, there's so much to it. I mean, honestly, if I didn't work full time, I'd probably be throwing a lot more of these at you. But this year, the workshop that opened me up the most, and although I'm still not quite sure what to do with it, was the one titled Disrupt Church. One of the things they did this year, since now General Assembly is a hybrid event, it used to be only in person, which was problematic in some ways because of affordability and travel. And then, of course, because of COVID, it was completely virtual. And now we've entered the hybrid years where when you go to General Assembly, the programming is structured so that whether you are virtual or there, you can attend what's being offered. So all the workshops were at a block in the middle of the day, and we all split up and went to different ones so that we could take advantage of what was there. The Disrupt Church one was led by the Community Church of New York, which is located in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan. They had 6 properties there, and they sold off 5 of them, including their sanctuary, which is kind of a big deal. So they are currently, this is new for them. So they're now finding new ways to engage with the world and figuring out what the heart of being a church community means. One of the stories they told was that, part of why they did this is because they spend a lot of time thinking about the decline in numbers in churches, which we all do. I mean, one of the things that they said at the beginning of the workshop was, just so you know, it's not just you, which I knew anyway, but still it was kind of good to be in a room with, dozens of people to hear, not just you people, this is a problem everywhere. And so this is their radical way of kind of breaking it open and rechanging the model. So they're hoping that this radical reshaping will lead to more engagement. And one story they told was what they did last Christmas Eve. What they did is they've had a tradition of singing the Messiah every Christmas Eve. Now they don't have a sanctuary anymore. They've been having their services outdoors, and well, some of them are indoors, but this one was going to be outdoors on the coldest night of the year. As you may recall, we moved our Christmas Eve service indoors last year because of that. They were outdoors and they sang the Messiah outside on 35th Avenue. But the minister of the church said that as they stood on the sidewalk and they could see all of the neighbors in the apartments around opening up windows, opening up doors, it felt like this incredibly warm community. And she said she felt like they could do more with less real estate. She said this was church. Now, I'm not sure that works for all of us, but it's something. I mean, I was saying to Debbie that last night I rewatched it just to be sure I had all the details and to be sure that my recollection of what hit me was true. I mean, as chair of membership, I think about numbers a lot, as you can imagine. And I'm not sure what I want to do with it, but certainly it is a point where I'm taking it in and I'm thinking about it. So that is the thing I go to General Assembly for, that challenging new thinking to see where it might lead. The other thing is the worship. I am a worship junkie, go to multiple services, sometimes more than one a day when I'm at work. It's awesome. And as you can guess, the worship services at General Assembly are pretty amazing. The music is extraordinary. I think Jim's going to talk a little bit about that. I mean, Matt Meyer was there, our pal Matt Meyer was there, but all of the music was just phenomenal. On the second night of General Assembly, we joined for something called the Service of the Living Tradition. It's something that I honestly wish every single you would watch, because in addition to it being a really lovely service, it's something that we've done for a long time. And what happens during it is our newly credentialed ministers, our newly credentialed RE leaders and music leaders, there is a track in the UUA for music professionals. They walk across during the service and we honor them. It's a beautiful passage happening. We honor those who've retired. And also, honestly, to me, we honor the folks who died in the last year. And having had 2 UU uncle ministers who've been in that category, it's a really cool thing to be there with a bunch of other people and to say, yeah, this is what's happened. I love this service. I love it that we call it the Service of the Living Tradition. This is our tradition and it's really powerful. I've heard sermons from GA that have stayed with me over the years. Past President UUA Bill Schultz preached a Sunday morning service a few years ago. I was trying to remember when it was. I can't remember. It's when I was in Louisville or where it was, but wherever it was, he was our president in the 80s. And he started by saying that he assumed this would be the last time he would ever do a service like this. And he wanted to make it count. And so he started, before he even preached, he started by putting a screen up, and he started with a very simple video. It started with looking at blades of grass, and then the camera panned up, and then you see a yard, and then you see a house, and you see the top of a house, and then you see clouds, and then it pulls back, you see the beautiful blue marble, and then pulls back. You see stars, you see galaxies, and it pulls back as far as you think, how is this going to end? And then it stops and it comes back in, and it goes down and down and down until you get back to the blade of grass. And it's like, without any words, that image, that perspective resonates with me. So stuff like that is what I go to General Assembly for. This is the stuff that for me is beyond words. I mean, you want to talk about what is church, what is a transcendent moment? This is where I get that. So I am very grateful to have been your delegate multiple times. And I was particularly grateful to have people with me. I wasn't the only delegate this year. And I was just saying, you all can go too. Jim.
Good morning from me as well. I'm going to go off script for half a second. I saw eyebrows raised and eyes getting wide at the mention of a resolution on divestiture and reparations. This was a vote about a very specific, lengthy motion that spelled out the methods by which both would be achieved. UUA has already adopted divestiture and reparations as general principles to be worked on. And what was voted down was a specific resolution on how to achieve it. So they're really different. It wasn't a rejection of either the principle of reparations or the principle of divestiture, just to be clear. There was a lot of discussion among us and in the hall, but I felt like that needed to be clarified. During the opening ceremony of GA, I was reminded of a musty old story that has made its way around UU circles for a long time. It has to do with the staid New England congregation whose services were conducted with proper restraint and decorum. One Sunday, a couple of visitors from a more exuberant religious tradition visited. They sang with enthusiasm, as we did earlier today, danced around a bit while they were singing, threw their hands up over their heads in reverence while they prayed, and they even interjected a spirited amen or two or three. One longtime parishioner leaned over to another and whispered, "What's the problem with those people?" "I don't know," came the response. "Maybe they got religion." The first one said, "Well, they didn't get it here." We were only a few minutes into the first GA session when I thought to myself, we're going to have to retire that story. Every element of that session, and the rest of the week for that matter, generated exuberance and joy. This is the first time I've attended GA, even though I've been a member of First Parish for about 30 years. I've had limited experience with the UUA, and that has been mostly in the realm of congregational business, such as selecting a new minister. But by and large, my life as a UU has been lived as if the UUA didn't even exist. I suspect that's true for many in our congregation. But GA changed my perspective. One of the attractions of First Parish is the people. If it's true that people are known by the company they keep, our congregation is a pretty good crowd to be associated with. At GA, I saw that the UUA is made up of congregations and individuals that I can equally be proud to identify with. Some of my family members, Baptist, have suggested that our lack of a creed puts Unitarian Universalism on a par with the Rotary Club, implying that we don't quite rise to the level of a real religion. I've never had a ready comeback for that, and at times I've wondered if maybe they were right. But after GA, I'm inclined to think that we may have a real religion after all, that we do have a joyful role to play in making the world a better place, and that somehow raises us above the level of a social club. In that regard, I'm thinking especially about the issue of racial justice now. I'm a member of our congregation's Racial Justice Task Force, along with Ellen and Debbie, who are here this morning. One reason for me to attend GA was to find guidance for implementing the 8th principle concerning racial justice that First Parish adopted in May. The deep pool of resources found at GA more than justified this decision. As the next church year begins in September, our congregation can look forward to activities that draw upon the resources we identified, our theological schools, UUA groups like Allies for Racial Equity, other congregations, and possibly a special musical presentation on race in America called Deeper Than Skin that one of the others of us had mentioned already this morning. But it's not just the resources that are valuable. Just as important is the spirit in which the resources are offered. At GA, I found thousands of people deeply committed to working for racial justice and doing it in an atmosphere of joy and hope. I think we can all use a dose of that from time to time, and who knows, we may just get religion too.
All right, we need to sing. So if you are willing and able, you can rise and we will sing in the teal hymnal, number 107, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Today's offering will go towards the service and ministry of First Parish. How to give. Simply text 617-539-7576 with the amount that you'd like to give. Do not add words, simply put the amount. You'll get a text message back asking you to do a one-time setup to create an account with your credit card or debit number. After the one-time setup, you can simply text the number with an amount to give, and it'll be automatically debited from the account of your choosing. This is contained and safe. It goes directly to a designated First Parish account. We're going to leave you with what we want to take with us from General Assembly. So let's all just stand here together.
The phrase that sticks with me is be a UU 7 days a week. After a week at GA, that seems to me like a challenge worth accepting.
With an appreciation at GA for working with others, for celebrating diversity and learning from those who came before us, I'd like to bring back to First Parish an effort to begin to lay out the steps for building beloved community.
One of the quotes that I heard there was, just like baking soda and vinegar can fix clogs, love and action can change the world. Service is love expressed, as so many of us do that here. Our last day, after a long week of GA, our last morning, they called a meeting of other local New England churches. Ellen, Jim, and I met with the local UUs to form bonds to work on some shared programs. We gathered with 8 local UUs from Jamaica Plain, Sharon, Danvers, Peabody, and we came up with some great ways of gathering together that I would love to make happen.
And it's all about connection. I want to bring that connection back to you, and I want to see you get connected to General Assembly. Our closing hymn is one that we all just said, this has to be it. This was like our theme for the week. Well, yeah, it's closing. It's 10:20 in the Teal hymnal, and we kept hearing it over and over at General Assembly, and so we had to leave you with this song. So,
Just want to say one more thing.
yeah, go ahead.
And next year, one of the things that the UUA did that just blew me away, I mean, I'll just go over a few of them, but like all the bathrooms were all gender. Before everyone spoke, they would say, I am a 5'8" woman wearing a dress, describing themselves for the people online. Every single person that got up on stage and spoke. And whenever there was meetings, they made sure that there were room for wheelchairs and for walkers. And they always thanked, they talked about the indigenous folks, the land that we're on, the land where the convention center is. They talked about the rivers in Pittsburgh all coming together and being that city and, giving back to the city. All the water bottles were metal. There was no plastic water bottles. Like, they really walk the talk like I've never seen in a huge, like 3,000 people way. And when I say when you walk in, there was always somebody there to help you. You never for a second, that convention center was so intimidating. I was really nervous walking in. I'm like, I'm never going to find my way. And immediately there were people stationed everywhere to give you help. But the GA, what they're doing, because it's a bit expensive to go and to pay for hotel rooms and to get there, next year it will be strictly online. And so what we're hoping to do here is set it up in the, in the parish hall and have dinners around it and invite, some of you guys can be delegates, but, invite people to be part of it as community. And that's the way the UUA is trying to do things, is be more accessible. And then the following year, they did announce that it's going to be in Baltimore. So that could be a road trip for some of us. So just to let you know kind of what's coming, and you will have an opportunity, if not to attend the full thing, but at least to come to one of our sessions here at First Parish.
All right, let's sing. next week's service, we need bodies because it's interactive. Jenny, Amy, it's going to be gorgeous. Music. Have a good week.